This is the Oneness Podcast, episode 37. I am Jessica Delmar. I assist in strengthening your knowledge of who you truly are as a powerful creator being during these powerfully shifting times. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I have been taking some time away from the podcast since the beginning of the year. I apologize for taking off, but I want to thank everyone who has continued to support me on social media, and those of you who sent messages or emails, those of you in my monthly membership group. Thank you so much for being part of this journey. When the beginning of the year 2021 came, I was strongly asked to soften and retreat for some very deep introspection, which I'm going to talk more about today. Like most of you know, I bring most of my messages through in writing, and then I share it here on the podcast or on social media, but I've been doing even more writing over these past few months because longer information has been coming through. Every time I sat down to bring something through in writing for a podcast episode, it didn't want to be a podcast episode. It got so long that it desired the format of written pieces to be read. So, there's a couple of things that I've been working on, different topics of information that I am continuing to work on. So I'm going to see where that information goes and see how it continues to take shape as I slowly work on it. But for now, the energies have finally been opening up for me to get this new set of podcast episodes out and ready for you. I want to start with a strong revelation that has come through regarding how New Earth is here. This deeper transformation that has been setting in over the past few months, and how much our focus on New Earth matters right now, despite all the other division and duality playing out strongly in the world. Since the beginning of this year of 2021, I had been asked by my greater guidance to soften my energy. 2020, last year, like most of you, opened some resistance within myself because of such strong duality and transition happening on the planet. However, I know well enough on my journey that when I am approached with contrast, it simply means that there is a new level of deepening waiting for me to uncover within. So at the beginning of 2021, I was asked to soften. With softening comes deepening into layers within. And as you open deeper layers within, you open greater understanding. And as you open greater understanding, you widen perspective. And as you widen perspective, you enhance consciousness. And I say enhance because opening greater consciousness simply feels like more and more clarity and definition in your knowing. The journey is never done, but you're always on the way. The depth of your inner knowledge and experience is infinite, so you are always expanding and opening new layers of depth within. There are times when you feel the stillness enough to think that there's nothing more, but there's always more. It may sometimes feel like there's nothing more simply because you have outgrown the layer of depth that you know within. But there's always the opportunity to break through into a deeper, more expansive layer within that offers new understanding and perspective. So, in my still and soft attempt at witnessing the world, not through the lens of right and wrong, but through the lens of divine order, what I began to understand truly was that the world playing out was purely old energy manifested as current events. I know I've spoken about this before many times, how everything you witness is old energy playing out, but my realization on a collective level comes at a new depth of understanding, much like how there can be many different shades and tones of the same color, enough to make them all very different, yet the same. I began to feel the transcendence of a new earth taking shape more vividly and tangibly than the current events that I also seem to be witnessing playing out at the very same time. However, the difference is that I feel very disconnected to the reality in which current events are playing out in, and more connected to a world that seems to exist purely in my mind, but is also taking shape in my reality the more I let go of what is and hang on tight to what can be. This transformation is a whole body shift, but also a whole reality shift, and we've talked about this new earth shift many times before, but something about right now feels so much more solidified. Many of you may know what I'm talking about, and many of you may not. But with all of this being said, my guides have made it very clear that it is time to energetically focus on new earth. I spent a lot of time in 2020 witnessing the playing out of what is, and trying to understand why things are happening the way that it was, or what I can do to shift things into a more desirable direction, or how to prepare for the collapsing and changing world. However, thinking of those things only made me more confused, more overwhelmed, more resistant, worried, stressed, upset, and energetically drained. So it's very clear to me now that my energetic focus is no longer aligned there. How I can describe it is that I just feel like I no longer fit there. And I know many of you feel the same way too. When I make focusing on New Earth my priority, objective, and focus, everything is so much more clearer and stronger. 3D issues are very draining because it's old energy, and it feels like hopping on a train that is a never-ending loop of effort. And so when you feel the duality playing out in current issues, it's very heavy, it's not clear, it's hard to discern truth from illusion. It's not a playing field that is necessary to focus on when manifesting and building New Earth, but is energetically necessary for your shift in perspective in order to get clearer focus on what it is that you do want. Many of you have crossed this line in the spiritual work that you have done within yourselves to completely surrender and now focus purely on New Earth creation. I have felt, especially in the past few weeks, since the last full supermoon, that the doors are clearly open, and it's time to claim New Earth as part of your web of creation. But you have to let go of what is. At this point, we exist simultaneously with what is, but its main purpose is to serve in pushing your focus and knowing of what can be. However, if you still find yourself very drawn to what is and getting caught up in the duality roller coaster, triggered by the shadow and unclear upon what it is that you truly want, then there are still parts of you that require healing, enlightenment, and clarity. So you may notice that your focus may strongly be on the loop of what is, and that's completely okay. You have to understand that if your focus is on what is playing out in the world right now, the duality, and you feel drawn into that, it's okay. The times that we are in currently are assisting you by immersing you in this old energy only so that you can strongly feel the pull of renewal taking place within you. We're all shifting one way or another. If you feel like you've moved through the doors and are witnessing your reality changing more and more, you're holding energy for this shift, not only for yourself, but for your entire web of reality and everyone in it. If you're still holding on to the old, your attachment will breed more and more resistance. Either way, it is a very energetically draining time, both in the awakened world and the sleeping world. Speaking of, our astral and dream travels have been very active in many different ways to further push this grand shift from all directions. Have you noticed yourself feeling very tired lately, exhausted, or having very vivid dreams. Allow yourself plenty of rest, drink a lot of water, and get lots of sun. New Earth is here. If you can find the stillness in between what is, you will catch glimpses of the folding pages. It's much like a hand-drawn cartoon or flipbook. Each page is about slowly integrating the movement into what can be, and therefore, what can be slowly folds into your experience. There's still so much to do, but energetically, it feels like a pregnant woman at like 8 or 9 months about ready to pop. It gets stronger and stronger every day. There's still so many changes to come, which we will navigate through as they come into our now moment. But for now, our energetic focus must be New Earth. I woke up a few days ago for the first time, noticing that the sky was different. It looks, for me, very similar to how it did when I was a kid. For me personally, the sky and the weather are huge indicators when it comes to reality shifting. Those are two things of my reality that speak to me often and reflect to me exactly where I am in very detailed ways. So for me, the sky is like a bookmark. It's a natural effect for me to energetically sort of take notes of the sky. So throughout my life, but especially as a kid, I would look up at the sky and I would take note of the sky. And I realized now that it was almost like sort of like downloading messages. And that's why I refer to it as a bookmark. Taking notes in the subconscious, what I'm feeling and the messages that I'm getting. And what I'm realizing now is that the sky and weather plays a big part in bridging time for me in the now moment, pulling that multidimensionality in the now moment by first understanding that bridge of time in my direct reality. So if the sky sends me messages right now in my now moment that brings forth emotion, energy, and information from another time in my life, I'm literally pulling that energy of that time in my life into my now moment. And as I do that, it births something completely new based upon something that was. So what's been coming through lately is that I've been getting the same feeling looking at the sky as I did when I was a kid in the midst of my innocence. It tells me that there is a completion occurring in a wider spiral or cycle of time and no time merging together. It shows me that the layers of inner child healing and source connection because of inner child healing has opened this sort of energetic tesseract field that introduces the purity of source energy into the now moment. So the unfolding reality that you focus on is the purity of source reflecting back at the purity of your inner child. This is both important and powerful, which is also why where you're focusing on is so important at this time too. Again, the purity of source energy is filtering into your now moment, but it's filtering into your now moment in a way that it reflects back to you the purity of your inner child. If you've been able to dive into those spaces, you have pulled and uncovered that inner child purity, if you will. If you've gone through the inner child healing process and all of that, which I know a lot of you have, you have pulled that energy of the inner child purity into conscious awareness. So you enlightened the inner child, which was once unconscious. So if that's in your awareness, in your consciousness, then it's most likely you'll notice the light of source reflecting in your reality, because it's reflecting back at you the purity of the inner child in your conscious awareness, in your understanding, in your knowingness, in your beingness. For a lot of people, the inner child connection is still unconscious. So even though the light of source is reflecting in their reality to show them the purity of your inner child, they may not necessarily see it consciously because that inner child is still unconscious. However, we'll talk about how that is soon shifting. But the thing I want you to understand is that the same energy in which I notice the shift in the sky is going to appear for everyone differently if you're conscious and aware of your shifting. It may not show you these shifts as indicators in the sky or the weather, but possibly in another way that better directly connects personally and spiritually with you and your inner child. So it does strongly tell me that it has something to do with inner child healing and the feeling that connects back to pure innocence. You will feel it like a spark at first that you notice in your reality. It will show itself to you like glitter, crisp, fleeting, corner of the eyes, quick energy. And this is why focusing on New Earth manifestation is so important right now. Because if you choose to follow and focus on the sparkle, no matter how fleeting it is, of your inner child innocence showing itself to you, you will get more and more and more until a significant breakthrough shows up for you in a very noticeable way, allowing for more significant unfolding of your inner child and source reflecting back to you the inner child spark. If you've been following my messages for a while, or especially if you're part of my monthly soul group membership, we have spoken many times before about how the inner journey is about unveiling deeper and deeper layers of your inner true self. When you get to the inner child, it's like another set of Russian dolls all on its own. The inner child holds many layers, and if you've experienced deep trauma, fear, or abandonment, those layers run very, very deep. Healing and nurturing the inner child back to remembering who it truly is as a spark of source energy is very much like the movie Inception. I've spoken about this before. It feels like there are layers within layers within layers, and the deepest layer being much like the infinite subconscious in the movie, but I like to call it the infinite unconscious. So pulling that infinite unconscious, the inner child, or rather the core of the inner child, into the conscious awareness is pure enlightenment of the inner child. And this is powerful in your transformation. I spoke about this in November 2020 when the inner child came in very strongly. I may have done a podcast episode about it, which I'll link in the description, but we definitely dove into it deeply in our soul group calls that month. It was so powerful. And looking back, hindsight being 2020, that is the significant energetic shift or tuning, unveiling of that core inner child, if you will, that led to this new state of transformation that I'm tapping into beginning this year of 2021. So it's important to allow for yourself to be open enough to be able to sense how your reality is sparking your remembering of innocence or the callings from your inner child. It will show up differently for everyone. And if you still have major inner child work and healing to do, and are not quite ready to dive into those very deep places within, you must know that your reality will push you into those places through your attention to what is. Your attention to what is will trigger deeper connection through unconscious awakening. And I say unconscious awakening because unconscious energy is pushing upward to the surface, regardless if you want it to or not. Conscious awakening often allows a person to move into those deep places of healing on their own time when they are ready, when they're ready to go into those deep places. But the times that we're in right now no longer really allow for quiet, soft awakening. It's rapid, it's quick, and the unconscious will enlighten into awareness in a way that leaves many people even more confused, even more overwhelmed, and unconscious to what's happening. So the thing about unconscious coming to the surface so rapidly is that it leaves unconscious residue in a person's awareness, which results in confusion and not understanding what's happening. So this leaves a person very open to being programmable, fortunately and unfortunately. So depending upon what energetic forces take part in this programmable state, which is happening and occurring right now, and many people awakening very rapidly, or rather having their unconscious pulled to the surface very rapidly, this will determine if that person falls deeper into the 3D playing field or open very quick awareness into the 5D playing field. But regardless, everything is unfolding exactly as it should be. Everything must strip away for you to even identify how New Earth is shining through the cracks for you. Again, diving into that core inner child, layers within layers within layers, the infinite unconscious. That is about diving into all the layers within you, stripping yourself down until you are literally the naked, most vulnerable version and state of yourself. Diving into that core place, the infinite unconscious, is merging with the essence and spark of who you truly are. And that's why it so deeply and so strongly opens the spark of source within you in a conscious way, allowing for yourself to experience the spark of source in your reality and manifest using that spark of source within yourself to experience the spark of source in your reality. There's so much to talk about, so we will go more into it and all of these shifts from New Earth perspective and focusing energy on what can be and finding more and more alignment to that sweet spot frequency of 5D in the podcast episodes to come. And so I want to thank you guys for being here and for listening to this first episode back from my long break. Again, thank you so much for your support and for being here and for all of your messages. I did receive a few audio voicemails from some of you, so I'm going to be listening to those and hopefully addressing some of your questions as well throughout this new season of this podcast. So if you do have questions, feel free to email me, feel free to leave a comment. I also have a link that I'll provide where you can leave an audio recording. This podcast can now be found on all podcast platforms. Listen and subscribe on Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, and YouTube. I'll see you on the next episode, and remember that all is truly well. Oneness, love, and peace be with you.